Hey, everybody. Hey, welcome to this latest episode of Movies Merica. Spoiler warning. As always, I am your humble host, Van Eberts. And boy, are you in for a treat tonight. Okay, so not only are we talking about one of the classic retro movies of all time here, True Lies, directed by James Cameron, but I have a very special guest that I will be bringing up here a little later on that I feel very honored, very privileged to be able to get on the show with his expertise, his knowledge of all things entertainment, all things Hollywood. And but real quick, just let me ask you if you can think of anybody at all that would want to watch this show here, would want to check it out. No matter how remote your suspicion is, go ahead and throw the link their way, okay? And you never know, they might be like, "Hey, I've been dying to talk about True Lies." And this is going to be their chance to live chat with moi over here about True Lies here a little later on in the show. Okay, so all right, and we are going to get right into this because I want to give you something to dance to, and here we go.
In a world where the number of movies available is great, but many are so bad, you'll learn a new definition of hate. One man sifts and reviews through the movie sludge. One man will be the movie cop, jury, and judge. He goes by many names, but you know him by Movies Merica.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, again, welcome to my movie maniacs and my fellow freedom-fueled film fanatics. You know who you are. And yeah, without further ado here, let's bring up our special guest here. I'm, again, honored to have him here, and I'm sure that you guys will enjoy having him on the show. And that is one Christian Toto. And there he is. Welcome, Christian, to the show. Again, very honored to have you here.
Thanks so much, and I feel a lot of pressure. A lot of. I have to live up to the advanced hype. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
It wouldn't be the first time anyone accused me of overdoing it. There, you know, I'm doing it out of kindness and you know, and sheer honesty and whatnot. But then afterwards, I don't realize, like, okay, yeah, I am putting a lot of pressure on people.
Yeah, my wife doesn't do it, so at least you can hype me up. So
there we go. Exactly. Well, there's some good coming out of it. I'm more than happy to fill in the void there. So yeah. Now, I was wondering, so you come out of New York, is that right then, or originally from New York? Is that right?
Yeah, born and raised. I was going to be an artist back in the day, and that didn't work out so well, and I needed to try a plan B. So I thought, what could be even more challenging than being an artist? Let me be a film critic. So.
Oh, sure. Right. Yeah. It's just a whole plethora of nationwide billions of money-making film critics out there. I hear you right there. And then you made your way out to Pittsburgh. Is that right?
Yeah. I was after college, went to Pittsburgh, worked at the Pittsburgh Tribune Review, kind of elbowed my way onto the entertainment desk just a little bit. And then I got to kind of get my feet wet there. And then I bounced to DC and ended up doing basically the same at the Washington Times. And that was actually more successful because I became a full-time critic there. So that was my journey. I kind of lucked out. I kind of just volunteered for every gig possible. And as we're alluding to, it's not easy to get a film critic gig. Certainly back in the day it was, and now it's even harder. But now, of course, with the internet, YouTube, podcasting, you can kind of just make it on your own. So it's
right.
It's a cool era to live in, that's for sure.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's hard to kind of be the Siskel and Ebert nowadays, but then you can just be like any Tom, Dick, and Harry like myself and have your own show on YouTube and that kind of thing. So, yeah, but no one's mistaking me for Gene Shalit, or Richard Roper. That, I mean, you're more in that realm right there. I mean, that's why I have you on. Siskel and Ebert weren't available. So I was like, hey, then I'm going to get the next best thing, Christian Toto here on the show right there.
When I was a kid, I actually wrote a fan letter to Gene Siskel, and he did not respond. But that was my only outreach to the stars. But I'm sure he was very busy.
Oh yeah, exactly. I'm sure everyone was corresponding with him and Roger Ebert and of course everyone as someone might imagine they always ask me, "Are you related to Roger Ebert?" And I enjoy, just kind of messing with them like, "Oh yeah, that's my uncle. He used to come over for Thanksgiving all the time and I used to tell him how his reviews were lousy and then I'd reveal to them, yeah, no,
You give a thumbs
never
down to the turkey, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, he's like, I'm giving you 2 thumbs down, Uncle Roger, for your latest review, right there. So, but now I know you've probably been asked this many times before here, and so I apologize in advance. But just for the purposes of my viewers, for their benefit, and for myself, because
Yeah.
I always like to hear it again. But how do you feel like? What do you feel shaped you into being the conservative oriented film critic that you are today? I mean, I guess maybe you consider yourself you're a film critic that happens to be conservative, but do you have any thoughts as far as like what might have shaped you into becoming that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was not a very political person either way, left or right. It just didn't give it a lot of attention. I was living in DC, and then I drove to work one day, and about maybe an hour later, I learned that the World Trade Center had been attacked, and I also drive past the Pentagon every morning. So that awakened me in more ways than one. I was certainly aware of the political scene. I saw how both parties reacted to the terrorist attacks. And I thought, well, one side said we should probably do something about this. And the other side said, well, maybe we've brought this on ourselves. And I said, I'm going to go with the first party. So that's how I became a conservative. Actually, the only thing Dennis Miller and I have in common is that that event changed both of us in that fashion.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So I just, I leaned into it a bit. And then the longer I was in the business, the more I realized that really there are very, very few people who judge films from a right of center perspective. My colleagues are almost all left of center, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there's a significant imbalance. And I thought, well, I could be true to myself and I can also lean into that. So that's what I've done.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because I mean, not to compare myself to you, but I mean, like, I review a movie, but I don't go in thinking, all right, I want this to be a conservative movie. I'm looking for conservative values in this thing. I'm just, when I go and watch a movie, what appeals to me is what me personally, I call it common sense. But then later on, after watching the movie, then I'm hearing other people call it, this is a conservative movie. It's got conservative values, conservative themes, conservative characters. I'm like, really? I just thought these were common sense, down to earth, salt of the earth kind of people. And kind of like Sound of Freedom, I think, is a very good example of that, where, when I went to go see it, I was like, okay, this is just a movie that's exposing, child sex trafficking. And you got Jim Caviezel playing this guy that's, portraying this real life character that's trying to put a stop to it, trying to help out any way he can. And then I come out of the theater and I come out of the movies and I'm hearing like, oh, this is a right-wing conspiracy QAnon movie. Like, what? Since when is like trying to help out with child sex trafficking like QAnon and conservative? It's just weird how that works.
The reaction to that film was almost, I could say, certifiably crazy. And you're absolutely right. There was nothing really conservative about it. It also was nothing really faith-based about it. I think Caviezel's character maybe invokes God once or twice, but that's it. But yeah, for some reason, the press and some critics too just absolutely framed it as this hard right, paranoid conspiracy. Like, no, this is a real world problem. It exists. It's a heroic tale. I don't see any political angle to it at all, but that's what it became. And I think ultimately that helped the movie at the box office. I think it kind of got a lot more attention, and people were kind of like thinking, well, if it's right of center, I need to see it. So I think it backfired from that perspective.
Yeah, the old Streisand effect, I think, I think it's what it was. I had all the Rolling Stone and these other left-wing publications, were just screaming like, don't go see this movie, and it was just like, when I was a kid, my parents were like, don't go buy that NWA CD. Like, well, guess what CD I'm buying, Mom and Dad, it's like, so yeah, that worked beautifully for Sound of Freedom. Now, I've got these questions. I did some deep thought, Christian, there into these questions here and whatnot. And so I have to admit ahead of time, I'm going to have to cheat and check out my spreadsheet over here because I want to make sure I get these right here, because these are questions where I've been dying to hear your answers to them here. And but in Andrew Klavan's foreword in your book, He praises you for being an acclaimed film critic who knows film structure while also understanding the politics of freedom and who can critically think with a moral intelligence to understand his worldview. In other words, you're an odd duck compared to many.
Yeah.
It seems that nowadays most film critics can't just acknowledge internally that some other critics and filmmakers have a more conservative worldview and agree to disagree. They feel they must instead explicitly call out and shame them in a way through their criticisms. They can't just let it go. And what do you think that is? And do you think that there was a particular catalyst for that happening?
When I first got into the business, I guess about 20 or so years ago, I didn't feel it was like that. It wasn't as aggressive. It wasn't as in your face. I just think that the culture at large has gotten more tribal, more political. I think the left has, for all its flaws, it is tried to politicize almost everything, from sports to academia. So I just think it's a cultural shift that movie reviewing has gotten caught up with. So I think that's what happened. Listen, the rise of Trump didn't help.
Right.
I was coming of age as a critic during the George Bush years, and that certainly didn't help either. Yeah, it's a shame because I think, speaking of Ebert, he obviously a great critic and a legend in this field, but his film reviews, which were very no nonsense, almost populist in a way, they got more political as he got older. And that was kind of a shame to see because he's so good at what he did. But yeah, I just think that people are getting swept up in it. And part of what I try to do is say, listen, I'm right of center, but if it's a liberal themed movie and it's good, I'm going to say it's good. I can't say it's not good. So,
Right.
Listen, most films are left of center if there is a message, and I just go by the quality. And there are a lot of clunky, bad movies and a lot of message driven films where the wokeness kind of suffocates us. But some films can be left of center and be quite good. There's no doubt about it.
Right. This is a terrible example, but I see your Raising Arizona poster behind you right there, and it's like it's not left of center, but they do have the little left quips, left leaning quips in there, like that son of a bitch Ronald Reagan in office or something like that, or they've got the Mondale Ferraro sticker on the station wagon right there. It's like, but I would still say that's a good movie, but like I said, that's a terrible example because those are just little bits of that movie.
It is and it isn't, because there are little tells in movies these days. One of my favorite examples, I was watching a horror movie. It's about a guy who kidnaps children, and he kidnapped these two kids and they were trying to escape. And at one point, you already know this guy's bad. He's the villain. We get it. He's captured kids. He's a terrible human being. But there's a scene where they show his car drive away. And I think there was like some sort of MAGA-like sticker on the car. I'm like, okay, it's not enough that he's a villain, that he captures kids. He's got to be a Trump supporter. So,
Right.
What you point at is real, and it's getting worse. And at the end of the day, it really just takes you out of the movie, because I'm watching a horror movie. I know the good guys. I know the bad guys. I don't need anything else. And just that little moment just says, oh, the filmmaker had to go there. And all of a sudden you're out of the experience. So yeah, it's real.
Exactly, because it seems to me it comes off to me like it's a director or a writer throwing a temper tantrum against politicians that they don't like. They're like, oh well, I have this film, I have this channel, this thing I could express my disappointment, my angst about this politician that no one else gets, on 3,000 screens across the United States, and they take advantage of that, and it just comes off. They come off as a pissed off ex-girlfriend is how they come off to me right there, but I mean, and a better example, I guess, for me is, so I loved Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that movie, I can't remember a political, there wasn't a whiff of politics in that. I can't think of anything, politically tinged in that movie. But then, of course, Harold and Kumar Go to Guantanamo Bay is the next one that comes out. And I hated that movie partly because it was the director, just lashing out at W, and it has completely ruined the movie for me right there. Now, if the movie had been funny, I would have kind of overlooked that and like, okay, yeah, the shots at Bush are kind of stupid and sophomorish and cheesy, but man, it sure did make me laugh. But I think that's a good example of just a director or a filmmaker just throwing a temper tantrum there. So
I think one of the things that I've seen in recent years is that when the message is heavy, it's often at the expense of the story or the laughs or the action or the drama. For some reason, the people who want to send the message so badly, they can't balance it out. I mean, I always quote the Night of the Living Dead, which was, I think, 1968, was a great horror movie and a sort of a true classic, and really brought zombies to the fore. But it also talked about racism. It also had things to say about the culture, but it
Sure.
was just so good that George A. Romero could get away with that and make you think. And even if you didn't agree with everything, it
Right.
still was like an added layer that made it better. And I
Yeah.
think today's filmmakers just don't have that skill.
Right, right, exactly. Now, you mentioned that there, and it just the movie Nefarious just popped into my head right there because it's a horror movie as well, but it also deals with themes that are controversial.
Mhm.
It's abortion um,
Mm.
and the just the ageism or something like that. That got demon possession.
Mhm.
Letting your sins kind of open you up to demon possession, that kind of thing. Euthanasia is the word I was trying to think of.
Okay.
There, all these themes, but to me personally, I think that movie is so good that yes, it does have all that stuff in there, and it is like really in your face.
Mhm.
But that movie is so good where I can, I mean, I'm the kind of conservative where I'm agreeing. I agree with all of the messaging in that movie, but I think that a lot of people can watch that movie and not necessarily agree with every part of it, but it is still entertaining. Now, I'm not going to put it on the same level as Night of the Living Dead.
No, no, no. But
Right
yeah, I
there.
agree. I thought it was good. I think throwing Glenn Beck at the end was a bad idea. No offense to Glenn Beck. It just was one of those, all right, that kind of
Right.
breaks the spell. That's my biggest problem with woke is like you go to the movies for escapism. And when you have these moments, it breaks the illusion. And all of a sudden you're back into your, oh, that's what they're trying to do, as opposed to
Right.
I'm lost in the story. I'm not even thinking about it. It's the
Right.
biggest sin to me in a sense.
Yeah, I hear you about Glenn Beck right there because to me it was about as subtle as a flying hammer at the end right there. It was almost like to me the equivalent of if they just called for an altar call at the end, like, oh, we know you love this movie, so if you loved it, come up to the altar
Yeah. Yeah.
and we'll encourage yes to give us a love gift of $5. One like that's
Mm.
kind of how it came off to me because I mean I get it. It's associated with the blaze and all that stuff. So that's why,
Mm.
yeah, I was kind of, I feel you on that. So, um, just another question here. So I find it curious or more to the point, suspicious that suddenly you have many on the left going all Puritan. They're going all religious right, kind of all Tipper Gore in their criticism of things like nudity and violence in movies.
Mhm.
Now, they were the ones that for years lived by the mantra, rightly or wrongly, of everything is art, no matter how depraved. Don't be such a prude, Jesus
Mhm.
freak. They laughed at church groups criticizing their movies and TV shows for adult content. Now they do a complete 180. Now, what do you think that is? And do you have any thoughts what
Mhm.
event or events would have precipitated this? I mean, I know that there was a sudden altar call that I didn't know about at the TCL Chinese Theater, the night, before, and everyone got religion. I don't know if there was something like that happened where everyone switched from the lovers of depravity and hedonism to, hey, we can't have too much nudity in all these
Mhm.
movies.
Well, it's funny. I think you're right, but I think you have to drill down a little bit more. I would say, when it comes to nudity, it's the male gaze and it's exploitation of women or fear thereof. Not like, well, if the actress is okay with a nude scene, then maybe the actress should be respected and that's her choice. So
Sure.
I think there's a lot of that going on, and that's where the sort of the morality comes into play, or the faux morality from the woke left. So I think that's part of it. But also, and you talked about violence, and it's like, okay, is it violence against women? Are they being exploited in a way? So
Right.
I think that's where it's coming from. I don't think it's just straight on mayhem that they're upset about. It's more specific than that. And then then you have every third movie is about hitmen, and that seems like a pretty morally dubious affair, or at least a
Right.
career. But the same people don't seem to be upset that we're honoring and genuflecting towards assassins. So
Right.
the morality is always a bit wobbly, but it is interesting having lived long enough to see the 80s and the moral majority and some of the forces there. and that the left was fighting vigorously for free speech, and good for them then. But now it's really the opposite. I mean, most conservatives are really fighting for free speech, and most liberals just aren't. So we live in interesting times.
Yeah, I mean, that's just one of the things that just kind of knocked me on my out of my socks. There is this that I've always thought of the left and Hollywood as kind of like, I always picture the show Real Sex on HBO, where, if you've ever seen any of that, it's got some really freaky stuff in there and that kind of thing. And so I always thought, well, if Hollywood is okay with having shows like that, and then now suddenly they're Tipper Gore. And to me, I could be wrong, but it seems like the timeline has coincided with Trump coming into office in 2016. I don't know if it had anything to do with that Billy Bush interview, and now, with that crude comment that Trump made, now they picture Trump as, oh, well, now he's this picture, this pillar of immorality. So now, in true TDS fashion, they feel that they have to be the complete opposite of Trump. So now that they think of him as, this pillar of immorality and hedonism, now we have to pretend like we're a bunch of Mennonites,
Yeah. Listen, you can't downplay how seismic Trump's arrival on the scene, political scene, has been to the culture. And I don't think you're wrong about that. And I do think there's been just, if Trump one day says ivermectin could be helpful or hydrochloroquine might be helpful, all of a sudden it's war on those two chemicals. I mean, that's how crazy it is. So yeah, I don't discount that. And maybe there were forces aligning before then, but yeah, he changed everything. He just changed everything.
Oh, right.
So often not for the better. And some of that is clearly not his fault. It's just he's a bull in a china shop.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it just comes off to me like a bunch of belligerent children, where they're just like, what would mommy and daddy think is cool?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, now I'm not going to think that's cool. I'm not going to like what they think is cool. Just kind of this contradictory kind of thing, just to be contradictory about it. And so that was my sneaking suspicion.
Also, the liberal left was the ones, they were looking the other way at Bill Clinton having an affair with his intern, which is the ultimate power imbalance that you could possibly imagine. And then the Access Hollywood tape with Trump, they were just, they were clutching their pearls. It seems a little incongruous.
Right. Exactly. Now in your book, you talk about how we need more conservatives like Dallas Sonia and Bonfire Legend, making the kind of entertainment that people want who don't want woke lectures. And now, who do you think is not only doing this, but doing it right in terms of doing what's needed to get their project in front of the most eyeballs possible? Because I know there's obstacles out there, like the biggest Hollywood studios just not providing money for those kinds of films, and or theater chains restricting how many screens that they'll let you put that on. Like that aforementioned movie Nefarious, I know, was one of the movies that ran into that. And so again, like, who do you think is doing that, and not only doing it, but like is doing it in an effective way so that the most people are seeing that? I'm guessing Dallas Sonia and Bonfire Legend is maybe one of your answers.
Yeah, I think the Daily Wire, I'm a contributor to the Daily Wire and the Blaze. I'll bring up the Blaze in a second. So just full disclosure. I mean, I think they're mostly doing things right. I mean, listen, it's very, very hard to create a movie studio from scratch. It's just there's so much investment, there's so much time, and there's so much talent involved, and distribution. There's all these different obstacles in your way. But I think the Daily Wire has done a mostly great job. I mean, I don't see many significant missteps there. But again, it's a very small scale, and they've admitted that. The Blaze seems to be teasing to go in that direction. They acquired a couple of comedies that were both very good, Agua Donkeys and Reopening, I think, was the second one, which was a terrific comedy if you haven't seen it. And I think I've heard Glenn Beck talk about he wants to get more in the space. So, we shall see. I actually think it's been much more successful and much more independent on the comedy scene, where comedians are just basically bypassing the mainstream media and going on Patreon, going on podcasts, going on locals, going on YouTube, Rumble. And, I think they've had a lot of success. I mean, the biggest names in comedy right now, you could say it's like maybe Andrew Schultz or Joe Rogan, Matt Rife, Sebastian Maniscalco, although he's mostly in the mainstream as well.
Right.
But I think the barrier to entry is much lower for comedians these days. It's just, a microphone and a joke and an audience. But with the movies, it's just, there's so many moving parts there. So I think you're going to see that evolving much more slowly. But I give Daily Wire all the credit because they're throwing a lot of resources in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, I thought their Run, Hide, Fight, their debut movie, was very good. I mean,
Yeah.
I went in, with low expectations. Not anything against Daily Wire, but I just like, well, how much money could they have, right? And then, how much of the, I mean, I was about to say faith-based messaging, but they're not really a faith-based company. They're just conservative, right? So, but how much of the conservative slant was it going to have? Now, me personally, I wouldn't have cared if it had it, but I'm a conservative, right? But I was obviously more worried about, hey, how entertaining is it? Because if someone says, hey, I just want it to be entertaining first, I don't think it's too much to ask that the movie be entertaining. And then if you have some messaging, that should clearly be priority number two. Priority number one should be like entertaining, great story, great characters, that kind of thing. And I thought Daily Wire, I think they pulled it off with Run, Hide, Fight. I mean, I thought that Isabel May was a very capable actress. Yeah, great in that. Thomas Jane, lent his veteran gravitas and that kind of thing. I mean, he wasn't the Punisher in that one, but he was kind of close. I mean, he was the handling of firearms and all that stuff, showing his daughter the way and that kind of thing. And then I think what Rhoda Mitchell was in there. That's kind of a brief appearance. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that Daily Wire is off to a good start. And Blaze, I haven't seen either of those two, but I'm going to make a point to check those out. But yeah, strength in numbers. I mean, we by no means want just the Daily Wire to be in. We want the Blaze and we want others.
There's a rising tide lifts all boats. I'm also seeing a lot of documentaries from if it's not right of center, it's maybe just against the groupthink. There's a new documentary on Substack called The Coddling of the American Mind. The Fall of Minneapolis is one of the best documentaries I've seen in years. That was from Alpha News, which is based in Minnesota. So that's another place where you don't need zillions of dollars to make a really effective film. And that's good for people who want to tell different stories.
Right. Yeah. That Fall of Minneapolis, that was a fantastic documentary right there. Yeah. To me, it had extra resonance because a couple of my sisters used to live up in Minneapolis, and so we used to drive around there, and it was just like a normal, I mean, as normal as a big town could be, right? Just driving around. Hey, it's a nice area. You guys, like a little lake over there, and people riding their bikes, and and hey, there's the Viking Stadium, just having a good time. And then now, then when the George Floyd debacle happened, and all basically the shitstorm that happened with that, all the riots and that kind of thing. It was night and day from driving by a lake and seeing a nice elderly couple riding their bike around the lake to, grocery stores and Targets being looted and police stations being burned down. And that Fall of Minneapolis, really brings that into full focus as far as what happened right there. But yeah, you make a great point. Documentaries, aren't something you need to spend $200 million on. You don't need to spend the Flash money on there or Indiana Jones and the Dial of Diarrhea. You kind of money on there. So, but yeah, I mean, and I think that with conservative filmmakers and again those movies out there, and this might just be me like sitting on the sidelines not knowing any better, but I just been kind of disappointed that we haven't had like more well-to-do conservatives throwing money, into the pool that where we can make movies and documentaries and TV shows that don't necessarily have a conservative message, but they have a non-woke message, right? It's just neutral, down the middle, entertaining, that kind of thing. But I haven't seen a whole lot of money. I mean, now we're seeing more of it, but
yeah, well, I mean, I think you're pointing at one huge problem, which is the money. Kevin Sorbo is basically kicked out of Hollywood because he's a conservative Christian. He never did anything wrong. He's always been a good worker. There's no one telling stories about him misbehaving on the set. He just had the wrong thinking. And now he's out. And, he makes movies on his own. He collects money. He struggles to collect that money. And, wouldn't it be great if someone just kind of threw him some cash and said, hey, go tell your stories your way. It's a huge problem on the right. And also, I will say that there's been a lack of significant support on the right, where all these different outlets are kind of competing against each other, and so they don't cover each other like they should. So, if the Daily Wire has a new film out, is the Federalist going to cover it, or is the Daily Caller going to cover it, or will other outlets cover it? Maybe not, because excuse me, because they're in competition with each other. So, if a Michael Moore puts out a movie tomorrow, every left-leaning outlet is going to praise him, is going to report on him, is going to interview him, is going to give him all the free publicity he could want. And we don't have that uniformity on the right. And I think that may be changing a little bit, but we'll have to wait and see. But that's been a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think what helps is, we've got personalities that we both know. Maybe you know personally, but like personalities like Chris Gore and Nerdrotic and the Geeks and Gamers and Critical Drinker. Those guys, they're getting on shows, mainstream shows, news shows, that kind of thing. They're talking to politicians and that kind of thing. I know Benny Johnson, obviously, who's close to Trump. He's been on with Geeks and Gamers and Nerdrotic and that kind of thing. And so I think that those guys are helping really, like, pummel politicians over the head, letting them know, like, okay, you think movies and comic books and video games are these stupid little things that sophomoric, immature people, take part in, but they're shaping minds.
Yeah.
They're influencing viewpoints. They are, sculpturing worldviews there, whether you like it or not. And so you need to take advantage of those things to send a message, or at the very least, stop the other side from sending the message right there. And because, like you were saying, and like I was mentioning here, the lack of money, I think, has to do with that. Is they just didn't believe, Andrew Breitbart's, I believe he was the one that said, hey, politics are downstream from culture, I believe, right there. But I like you said, I think that now, finally, I think that, we're kind of getting through their big craniums, with that message that, yeah, it's got to be dealt with. Because, I'm sure a lot of people are having their political opinions shaped through Jimmy Kimmel,
Oh, yeah.
The Daily Show, and that kind of thing. Like it or not, as absurd as that sounds, that it would be shaping their political opinions off of a show that blatantly markets itself as, hey, it's a comedy show. Which, when I said it out loud, saying that Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert are a comedy show kind of makes me laugh, because not so much anymore. Maybe 15 years ago, yes, but not anymore. But yeah, I'll get another question here. So I hear people say that Hollywood is lazy, and that's shown by them continually just churning out content from established IP and not much of anything original. However, I can't help but notice that on those rare occasions that something original is released, the box office is pretty paltry.
Yep.
Take, for instance, movies like Monkey Man or Boy Kills World this year, or The Creator last year. Those original movies tanked at the box office. It seems, with the exception of a few original horror movies like Megan last year. Original movies just don't get the audiences they need to send a message to Hollywood to make more original movies. Now, do you have any thoughts on whether the very people complaining about no original movies ever coming out are to blame themselves because they don't go see the original movies or talk about it? I'll put the pinpoint on myself. By Boy Kills World, I didn't go see it, but I think that one's kind of more like the marketing sucked, because I didn't even know it was even coming out last weekend. But
yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. And I think that, listen, it's true that Hollywood is too reliant on prequels and sequels and reboots. But again, a lot of this is money driven. And we're sending the message that we will go see a mediocre movie if it's attached to an IP. I think The First Omen did rather poorly. That's an exception to the rule. But, listen, you're trying to mitigate risk. And if you're a Hollywood studio, you think, okay, I could make a movie that's a prequel to this, or is connected to that, or is part of the John Wick franchise. You've got an edge. You've got a marketing edge. You've got awareness there that you don't have with original films. So yeah, that's on us. We can train Hollywood to make more original films if we support more original films.
Right.
And The Creator is a great example. I didn't love it, but it was fresh. It was interesting. The effects were wonderful at a really low price point.
Right.
And if we don't see those movies, it's just telling Hollywood to keep cranking out the sequels. I think this year's summer release is like all, non-original stuff, but we'll go out and see it and we'll support it. And listen, I love sequels. I don't mind that. If they're good, if there's a reason for it, I'm all for it. But like a movie like The First Omen, there was no reason to make that movie. I didn't think it was very good. No one cares about that franchise. None of the teens today who are the main movie drivers, I don't think they know it at all. It's been dormant for like maybe 20, 30 years.
Right.
So sometimes it doesn't even make sense. they're talking about a Popeye movie now. Like, what kid wants to see a Popeye movie?
Right.
So, sometimes they're so driven by the IP, I don't think they see the forest for the trees, but we've trained them to say, we want sequels, we want reboots. And until we give them a stronger message, we want original stories, they'll keep cranking that stuff out. So that's on us.
Yeah, that's why I sound on this show. If you watch any of my past episodes, on more than one occasion, I sound like the nagging mother. We're like, you guys need to go out there and watch those original movies, young man. Because I'm always lecturing my own audience here. I saw the box office, everybody, for The Creator last week, and you guys didn't do a very good job. And I have to kind of stop myself from doing that because. Nothing gets anybody to stop or not to want to go see a movie more than a guilt trip. Like putting a guilt trip on anybody.
It's a little bit of tough love you're delving out. So you're right. And
yeah.
Listen, there are things you can say on a podcast that gets people riled up, or you get them on your side. But sometimes people need to hear the truth. So that's to be honest is as important as rallying the troops.
Right. Yeah. I think like Gran Turismo is another good example last year of a original movie that, I say original, it's connected to a video game. I realize that it had that advantage, but other than that, it's an original movie, but that sucker lost to like Saw 10 and like Paw Patrol 23 or whatever it was, that like, really, come on. Or that was The Creator. I think it lost out to those, but Gran Turismo, it didn't make very much money there, and that's one of those movies where I saw it, I'm like, wow, it's a great movie. This is like Top Gun Maverick on wheels. Because I remember walking out of that movie, walking out of the theater, like, yeah, I could take on the world, and I'm like, who would not want to see this movie right here? And of course, apparently a whole lot of people didn't want to see it. And I'm like, the way I feel about it, and you're probably the same way, Christian, is when you see a good movie and a lot of people don't go see it, and you wanted them to go see it, you want them to go see it because you want to do your fellow man a favor. You want them to be entertained.
Listen, you and I love movies. We want to be evangelists for good movies. So when we see a good movie that doesn't get a lot of attention, we want to spread the word. I was so sure that movie would have legs. That I was like, okay, open softly, but once people see it, they're going to like it. Right. Just didn't take off. Listen, they may have a second life on home video. That's fine. But I thought it was very good, very surprisingly good.
Right, exactly. So, you were mentioning The Omen earlier, the first Omen there, the original movie there. And I remember you were saying there on one of your podcast episodes that, critics are more receptive to horror nowadays, but you were saying that the original Omen, that opened up in 1976, the reviews for it were not that great back then. It's like, it's Richard Donner. From Superman, and obviously Lethal Weapon wasn't out, at that point, 1976. But you're right. I think that they're much more friendly to horror movies nowadays. I was going to say the aforementioned Nefarious, but maybe not the mainstream critics didn't maybe necessarily like that movie. But I think like movies like Talk to Me and Late Night with the Devil, those are some recent horror movies that I think have gotten some pretty good critical reception.
Yeah, I think that critics are more open to genre films, superhero films, horror films. I don't think that was the case 20, 30 years ago. That's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I should mention, I forgot that. Anytime you need to, step or take off here, let me know here and whatnot. No, I'm not trying to hold you hostage here or anything like that. So I don't want to be that guy. But I'm talking about True Lies here tonight, and it just, it just popped in my head that you mentioned True Lies in your book there briefly, where True Lies was like another, and correct me if I'm misconstruing your comments on there, but I think you were saying that True Lies was another example where people were getting mad that Middle Eastern characters were being portrayed as terrorists right there. And I'm like, that's one thing that drives me crazy is that, I don't want to go after a certain group of people, certain ethnicity, especially if they didn't do it, especially if they're not guilty of that. But I hate to say it, everybody, but a lot of terrorists are of the Middle Eastern persuasion. If there was like if most terrorists were a bunch of blue-eyed, blonde-haired Danish people, I wouldn't have a problem with them being portrayed as terrorists in movies. But I just thought that was just absurd that people were getting all up in arms about that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, that was what, 20 something years ago that there was
Yeah.
that sensitivity. It's much worse now. It's almost comical sometimes when they go out of the way not to show a certain group in a certain way. Listen, yeah, like I said, I don't want to see a group demonized consistently on the screen, but I think The Siege was another example of that, where the Denzel Washington movie that caused a kerfuffle, one of my favorite words. So, yeah, listen, you need balance, and you need, but at the end of the day too, when you're making a movie and you're making a good guys versus bad guys, often the villains will be cartoonish or one-dimensional or not as fully developed as the heroes. It's just the way it goes. And, to paint, you could say that's maybe you want more nuance in a story. That's perfectly fine. But to just kind of castigate it for that reason doesn't seem fair.
Right. Yeah. Because it seems like they've got this blanket opinion that they have to be against white people, and then anybody that's non-white, you can't portray them as villains, because they assume people who portray them as villains are doing it because they want to stick it to a non-white person, right? And it's just, that's not necessarily the case. It's just, it's because you're maybe portraying a true story, or you have a story that you think is captivating, and it in a realistic aspect of the story is a terrorist in the story happens to be, from Syria or whatever, and that kind of thing. You don't have a hate for Syrians, but it wouldn't make sense to have your terrorist from Alaska or something like that.
Yeah. The best example, and by best I mean worst, was a movie a couple of years ago called Snatched with Amy Schumer.
Oh,
and
sure.
she plays, I think she goes out to a vacation retreat with her mom, played by Goldie Hawn. And then they get captured by people who are living in that. It was a Latin American country. I don't remember the specific location, but a lot of critics were outraged by that, saying it was racist and offensive. And I'm thinking, first of all, Amy Schumer is Miss Progressive. She doesn't really want to do anything to harm a community. So clearly that wasn't her goal. And secondly, if she's in a foreign country and there's bad guys afoot, the chances are they're going to be of color because you're in a foreign country. It was absurd. I think even Bill Maher called that out, but that was where we're kind of reaching the height of this insanity that's going on right now in the culture. But that was just a good example of how far this kind of thinking goes. Like, you can't make the bad guys people of color. And there were other people in the film who were locals who were kind and nice, and there was a balance there. It wasn't like they were demonizing every person, but it's just silly. It's just absolutely silly.
Oh, right. Yeah. It's almost like they're overcorrecting, right? I mean, I know that there's such a thing as way back in the day, a movie like Birth of a Nation and all that stuff. Like, there's a lot of wrong and legitimate racism back in the day and whatnot. Yep. So, and we needed to get rid of that. We needed to phase out of that and get to that true place of equality for all races, creeds, and whatnot. Right there. But now it just seems like, they're overcorrecting. They're being paranoid. They're pulling that trigger on outrage way too easily nowadays.
And, I think part of it is that they feel guilty for not being more accommodating, for not being more inclusive for years. Yeah. And I think that guilt is really going to make them go into overdrive. So,
exactly. Because kind of like you're smothering a child or something like that, your first time parent, and like you're overdoing it, it's like, I feel so guilty. I got to overdo it and whatnot. And it's like, just tone it down. There's a perfect middle. You should try to strive for that.
Remember A Christmas Story with the kid that gets wrapped up to go outside? It's like, I can't put my arms down. That's it. That's the physical manifestation of what they're doing.
Right. Exactly. And then it turns into a contest of virtual signaling as well. Like, I'm the most virtuous. Well, no, I'm the most virtuous. No, I'm the most virtuous. And you have that going on. It's a virtual or virtue. Yeah, virtual Olympics. There we go. What's that virtuosity? I don't know. I must have Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe on the brain or something like that.
The virtual Olympics is where no one wins. So that's
right. There we go. Virtually nobody gets a medal. So
that's right. The medal goes to none of you, really. You just you behave badly.
Exactly. It's a virtual waste of your time to have even shown up right here. So yes. And one of the things that you had talked about here recently is Jerry Seinfeld's comments on Hollywood right there. And I'm sure you're like me, where the reactions that he got were so predictable. And so just you could just set your watch to it, like, oh yeah, they're gonna call him an old man. They're gonna say he's an old man yelling at the clouds. They're gonna say he's out of touch and that kind of thing.
Out of touch, lazy, old, white. That's
right.
Check.
Yeah, exactly. And it's almost like reassuring that those are the only comebacks they can come back with, you know, and that's predictable like that.
I mean, the problem is that people on the left, by and large, don't debate. They don't debate well. They try to shut down debate. And when they are challenged on a subject like Jerry Seinfeld did, they don't know how to answer. So then that you have to bring up all the ad hominem attacks. Listen, you could say there are some good comedies that have been made in recent years, like maybe on the small screen, some quality shows. But you could also say that, well, most of the great shows of yore you couldn't do today. You couldn't do Blazing Saddles. You couldn't do many scenes from Friends. Couldn't do certain scenes from Seinfeld. That tells you there's a problem in the culture. In fact, that there are very few big screen comedies, especially the R-rated ones. They just don't make them anymore. It's another sign. So you want to have the debate, let's go for it. But let's be honest and let's have a real debate.
Right. Yeah. Like Jonah Hill, him expressing regret about Superbad and all that. And I'm like,
so bad.
Dude, you don't have to apologize for that. Okay. It's like we can compartmentalize. We realize it's almost like he thinks people are too stupid to realize he's a character.
I mean, I think he might be afraid of being canceled. He might be afraid of not appearing with the in group. That was very depressing to hear because he's a pretty talented guy. And Superbad is a very funny movie. And, characters in movies don't have to be role models. You could have a Jonah Hill character who's a jerk, who objectifies women. And it could be funny because we know it's not the right thing to do.
Right.
But it can still be humorous. I mean, that's where comedy goes. It's,
Yeah, exactly. It's, it's entertaining. It's a breath of fresh air that, because we don't run into that in real life, right? Most of the time, right? And so it's kind of a surreal kind of like, wow, it's entertaining because you don't run into it, and people can recognize reality versus a movie, but it's just but unless you're in Hollywood, and so you make a good point that maybe he's afraid of being canceled because what you and I consider common sense, like I'm watching a movie on a big screen and there's Jonah Hill and he's saying things about women's boobs, but I'm not assuming Jonah Hill is that way in real life. We have the capability of doing that. Yeah. Apparently there's a whole lot of people in Hollywood that don't. Yeah.
Or maybe he is and he's feeling a little guilty. I'm teasing. I mean, listen, to me, the best example is people getting outraged about Bluto. I think it's Bluto's the name of the character on in Animal House. When he peers into the sorority house window and looks the girls changing.
Yeah.
First of all, he falls off the ladder, so he's punished in the scene. And second of all, listen, I've got two boys. I don't want my boys peering in a sorority house, but also it's funny. I can laugh at people behaving badly. It doesn't have to be that he doesn't have to be a saint.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like not everything's got to be Leave It to Beaver nowadays. And that's what I fear is it's too many people in Hollywood want to edge us closer to the world of Demolition Man. I mean, how soon are we going to be telling people, telling each other, enhance your calm? How soon are we going to be ticketed for, using profanity and Taco Bell is going to be the only restaurant. I think that it's because in that movie, that whole morality thing was just creepy. And I don't have a problem with people being moral and ethical and whatnot. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think people Hollywood wants to overdo it. And a part of me thinks they want to do that just because they want to feel superior, that kind of thing. So
I don't know all the reasons. Maybe they're not even telling us all the reasons, but it's just annoying. And let's make comedy again. That'd be fun.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, but well, yeah, definitely. Christian, I know you got to take off here, but I just again appreciate the time that you gave me right there. And I'd really like to have you on again, or my name ain't Nathan, Arizona. Okay. But I want to let everybody know about Christian has got his Hollywood in Toto podcast. You can check out anywhere that you would imagine podcasts, right? Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, imagine like Spotify, those kind of places.
And I'm joining you. I'll be doing video podcasting very soon, probably about 2 weeks away. So it's audio right now. It'll be video and audio and very, very shortly.
Sweet. Excellent. Absolutely. So, and then you've got your Hollywood in Toto newsletter and your website there. Mm-hmm. So check that out right there. But again, honored to have you on here. Hopefully to do it again. And have yourself a great night there, Christian.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot. Take care. All right, everybody. That is the one, the only Christian Toto there. I appreciate him giving me the time right there. So, and yeah, check out all those locations that I mentioned right there. He's also got his Virtue Bombs book available. You know, obviously, where you can imagine that you can buy books at Amazon is the first location that comes to mind right there. But yeah, he's got some great content out there. So, and he's a great source. Like, so if you ever want to get as close to a full picture of what we're dealing with here with wokeness in Hollywood and the problems that we're dealing with and that kind of thing, check out Virtue Bombs, because it did come out a couple years ago, I believe, but it does kind of just give you a whole inventory of every you know, of what we're dealing with right now, of everything we've gone through. I think like the Gina Carano situation, you know, comedians not being able to be comedians without being attacked for, you know, being too non-woke, that kind of his book covers that and many more topics right there. And I see the gray man here in the live chat on Pilled, and glad to see you join here tonight. So good to see you right there. I like the sticker. Very you know, very dreamy right there. So all right. And what should we do next, everybody, now that Christian has bid us a fond farewell right there? Well, of course, we should talk about True Lies, but real quick here, let me tell you guys all about our tdpn.locals.com website up above right there. And that is our website that goes over or has our content all about movies and entertainment, cocktail recipes, you know, like booze, hot button topics of the day. We've got Sean's on there with his music content there. He's a bass guitar player. So you get a veritable gamut of all kinds of cool subjects on tdpn.locals.com, and presented in a way that you will not find anywhere else. Believe that right there. And right now, as you see down below, if you put in promo code TDPN, you're going to get 1 month free membership to the website there. So for that 1 month there, go crazy. Take it, you know, like take advantage of all the VIP access that you have. And then after that 1 month, it's just a measly $3 after that. It's no problem whatsoever. So check that out right there. Don't hesitate. Do it right now. Well, not right now. Not right now. Like, do it after the show. Okay. So priorities, everybody. Priorities. All right. So you know what? I think it's about time to get into some True Lies. How about that, right? Because I mean, this episode was advertised as talking about True Lies. Pardon me. A little beer burp right there. So been drinking some of this, so you will see a few beer burps here and there amongst the show or during the show. So yeah, I know, very, very professional. I do realize that. So, but yeah, True Lies. Let's get right into it. I mean, now this came out in the same summer as Speed. It came out, you know, with Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock, and then True Lies was kind of like the big budget counter to that movie right there. So True Lies is an action movie. Obviously, Speed is an action movie as well. But Speed actually, you know, it made a lot more money just because it had a much lower budget than True Lies, but it made a lot at the box office. And True Lies made a lot at the box office as well, off the star power of, you know, Schwarzenegger and James Cameron coming off of T2 a couple years before that. But a lot of people, they preferred Speed. Not me. I'm a True Lies guy. I mean, I do like Speed. I think it's a novel concept. You got to keep the bus going over 55 miles per hour, otherwise the thing's going to blow up, right? But True Lies, one of the reasons I like it is because it was the first movie that have a budget over $100 million, and it looks the part. Okay. It seems like most of the dollars show up on screen right there. And there are many expensive looking moments in True Lies that remind me why I go to the movies for the escape, right? I mean, we all have our daily lives, our daily grind. You get your, punching in for your job, and you go home, and maybe your husband's nagging you, or your wife's nagging you, your kids are on your ass and whatnot. And, great, I got to clean out the garage again. Ugh, I wish I had an escape. Well, hey, True Lies movies overall is, a great escape to enjoy. And True Lies is a big budget version of an escape that you can take part in. And so that's the way I looked at True Lies, and pretty much all movies in general. And some of those big budget scenes that I saw, were like the snowy chase at the beginning of the movie, or towards the beginning of the movie, with the cool skiing snowmobile, shoot 'em up. The funny scene where they sick the Dobermans on Schwarzenegger, and he basically cracks their heads together, and it doesn't kill them, but just kind of knocks some sense into them a little bit. And then, of course, the entirety of the assassination attempt on Harry, Schwarzenegger's character, and then the chase through DC and into the hotel afterwards. Schwarzenegger is chasing them on horseback, and the main terrorist, played by Art Malik, is on the crotch rocket there. And just that whole scene, the real Harrier jets, with the Marines, not CGI Harrier jets, but real CGI or real Harrier jets, lighting up the terrorists, with those 30 millimeter rounds, those Maverick missiles, on that 7-mile bridge. Another big budget moment is Harry turning an entire floor of a skyscraper full of terrorists into coleslaw, with a only in the movies amazingly long burst of Harrier firepower. Okay, so moments like that where like, holy shit, what am I watching here? This is great. This is awesome. And I think that James Cameron, he remembers what it was like for him watching movies as a kid, just having that sense of wonder, just gawking up at the screen, And, like other directors like Christopher Nolan and Denis Villeneuve, he wants to bring all of us, he wants to bring the audience an updated version of that wonder, a wonder backed by $100 million, $200 million budgets, that kind of thing. Or in the case of James Cameron with the Avatar movies, like what, $350 million dollar budgets, if not maybe more than that. And, we've seen James Cameron do that, try to bring us that sense of wonder, ever since the Terminator, ever since way back in 1984. And, he's still doing it today with his Avatar movies, and most of his movies, when you watch them, you are, never, ever, ever saying, that they are.
She's gone from suck to blow.
You do not say that about James Cameron movies for the most part, if ever, right? And, we've got, the great comedy in True Lies. Okay, I remember, I seemingly, mildly remember them marketing it as a action comedy, but apparently I forgot that it was a comedy, because when I was watching the movie for the very first time, and then Tom Arnold, of all people, starts being funny in the movie, I was like, whoa, what the hell? Oh, that's right, it's an action comedy, because it obviously is, because I'm laughing my ass off right now. And amazingly enough, I mean, as if I wasn't amazed enough, it's Tom Arnold, of all people, making me laugh. And, but again, Tom Arnold, after this movie, he went back to being zero funny. Okay. But Bill, Tom Arnold, he's joined in the comedy core in this movie by Bill Paxton as Simon, the super agent, the super spy that is, putting the moves on Arnold's wife, of course, played by Jamie Lee Curtis. And Bill Paxton is fantastic in this movie. And we'll talk about Bill Paxton a lot more later on, because I'm going to go over my top 5 Bill Paxton movies later on. That's what we call a tease, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, Paxton had already worked with Schwarzenegger and Cameron. He worked with Schwarzenegger in Commando. He was like an intercept officer in Commando. He was in the Terminator. He played like the lead street tough that the Terminator took out. And then, of course, he was in Aliens, James Cameron's Aliens right there. Now, half of Paxton's lines in True Lies would not make it past the purity police enforcers of the woke in Hollywood nowadays. I mean, but his lines in this movie are undeniably hilarious. Okay, when he's talking about hitting on Arnold's wife. I mean, they're what's the word I'm looking at? They're disgusting, but they're hilarious, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. They're very sophomoric. They're very crude. But that's just one more thing that makes True Lies a massively entertaining vacation from real life. That is for sure right there. So, all right. So let's switch it up here a little bit here. I want to drink a little bit more of this brew that I got over here. Okay. And I can't think of a better excuse to do that than firing up a little brew review time. What do you say? So let's get that brew review time going right now. All right, everybody. All right, let's fire up some brew review time. And the lucky brew review brew for today or tonight here is a little Sierra Nevada Bigfoot barley wine. Okay, so and this comes to us from Chico, California. So Bigfoot is it's their barley wine, and so as you would imagine with a barley wine, the alcohol by volume is substantial. Well, for a beer, that is. Okay, so it's 9.6 alcohol by volume, and so it's gonna kick you in the ass as far as beers go. I mean, it's not. Come on, we're not talking Jack Daniels or Everclear, anything like that. This is still it's a beer there, but yeah, this is a rich beer with radical bittersweet malt flavors in it. Now I hate raisins, but it's got a little bit of raisin in it, I'm told, but I don't taste the raisin, so thank God, because I can't stand raisin. I mean, it also has a smidge of vanilla in it as well, but it just all comes together in just this fantastic mixture of flavors to it. And again, I'm not getting any money from Sierra Nevada at all, so this is a completely objective opinion right there. And the taste that I'm getting from this, it comes from its time spent in barrels. I guess they have it in the barrels that they have stored in there for a certain amount of time. That gives it that unique flavor that I'm enjoying right now. But in drinking this Bigfoot barley wine, it kind of reminds me of one time I was unwisely chugging a lot of barley wine. I was at this music festival. Maybe some of you have heard of it. Maybe you've been there. Memphis in May. I was there in Memphis in May at the Beale Street Music Festival, and we were drinking anything and everything in sight. Okay, when I was there with my buddies, and my beverage of choice on one particular day there was some barley wine. Now it wasn't a Bigfoot barley wine, but it was a barley wine. Okay, and it was a big thick barley wine with a pretty heavy alcohol by volume, like for as far as beer goes. So I was chugging a bunch of these, but I was pairing it with scarfing down a bunch of funnel cakes. Okay. They're not a good idea. Do not do that. Do not chug a bunch of barley wine and scarf down a bunch of funnel cakes. Okay. And on top of that, they were like these red velvet funnel cakes. Okay. So it wasn't even that good. But you know how it gets, at least for me. You start getting hammered, you start getting the munchies a little bit, and you're not exactly the most discerning eater, so you're living that hedonistic lifestyle. You're just downing whatever is put in front of you, and you're scarfing down whatever you can get your hands on. So yeah, so whenever I drink a barley wine, it brings those memories back. That's what I think of as me chugging barley wine and scarfing down like just mass quantities of red velvet funnel cake at this music festival. And then, of course, later on, I yacked. I think it was like the third jam in the Linkin Parks set at the Beale Street Music Festival. That's probably when I yacked from all the unwise eating and drinking I was doing. But yeah, let me seal up that story with the tug off this bad boy right here. All right. So very, very good stuff right there. But yeah, hopefully you can go out there and grab yourself some Sierra Nevada Bigfoot. I should be able to find it. This is not the most obscure beer I've ever reviewed by any means at all. Okay, so we go check that out there. But yeah, that's been another brew review time. If I can get my ducks in a row here, there we go. All right. Well, hey, we got so much more True Lies to talk about here. Okay, we are not done whatsoever. But yeah, Arnold. I mean, he's one of the recipients here of some fantastic action set pieces that James Cameron and maybe some others put together. Now, James Cameron was the sole writer of this movie, so I'm going to give him credit for the action set pieces. But I'm sure there's some stunt coordinators that drummed up some of the action sequences that we saw in this. But this is not some cheap, straight-to-video action movie, okay? And you could tell just from, the big moments, the big action set pieces, like the aforementioned chase through D.C. and the big snowy pursuit of Arnold, there in Switzerland, I think is where it was at. The massive showdown, the finale with the Harrier jet in Miami at the high rise and taking out the terrorists and all that stuff. And so Arnold, being the king of action that he was at the time, was a recipient of that. But when True Lies came out, Arnold was coming off the first real box office disappointment of his career, called Last Action Hero, which I remember shocked me big time watching that, because up until Last Action Hero, Arnold was the king. He was like Conan sitting on his throne, a big crown on his head and whatnot. He was the king of Hollywood, with the likes of the Terminator and Commando and Predator and Terminator 2, Twins, Kindergarten Cop, Total Recall, and then he basically just he shit the bed with Last Action Hero, directed by his Predator director John McTiernan. Okay, and John McTiernan also did directed Die Hard, directed The Hunt for Red October. So this is Arnold's first time falling for the old banana in the tailpipe. So he had some making up to do at the box office, and True Lies was his way to do that. And so it probably helped that he was getting some help from a good old friend of his, old Jimmy Cameron, who had been, box office gold for Schwarzenegger, with Terminator and T2. And so Arnold was, he just seriously had some making up to do right there. But, when True Lies ended and the end credits were rolling, I was naive. I thought, he's back. But not really realizing that, no, he was not back at all, because his film career was not the same after True Lies whatsoever here. And, I see real quick here, the gray man says, too bad that he does not drink. Hey, that's cool. That's cool. Have a good time, regardless of that right there. That takes more skill to have a good time without the added assistance of, drink or drug or whatever right there. So, but definitely respect that right there. Or maybe you just don't drink, maybe not drinking right now. Maybe you're working or something like that. So, right there. So what do we got here? Hi. All right. Hey, hi to you there. I can't make out your name there. I apologize, but I'm going to call you Lion Face. But hi there. Great that you can make it. Appreciate the support here. Hopefully you're enjoying the show, the portion that you have caught here so far. Always good to see some new folks join the fray right there. So, and I think that deserves a little applause. What do you say? Yeah, always let it be said. I always overdo it. I know. Always overdo it right there. But yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger's career was never the same really after True Lies, or more to the point, after Last Action Hero there. And then one other thing that was curious to me was Jamie Lee Curtis being cast as his wife. Now, not to be totally superficial and not to be, too frat boyish, but she's one of those actresses where her body is slamming. Okay, make no mistake. Back in the day, Trading Places, True Lies, her body was slamming. I mean, again, not to be too misogynistic or superficial or shallow, but her face has never really done anything for me whatsoever. And so I was like, Jamie Lee Curtis, okay, you could get like Rene Russo or somebody like that, somebody hot, hotter, or right there. But Jamie Lee Curtis ended up knocking it out of the park right there in this movie. And hey, we've got Trevor here in the live chat there on YouTube right there. And it's, hey, no apologies needed. No apologies here ever. Okay, so and unless you say like you're a Michigan State fan or something like that, or whatever, then or an Ohio State fan, and then apologies are more than appropriate right there. So yeah, Trevor's feeling me. He's feeling me. She's a paper maggot. Okay, so yeah. So yeah, she's turn the lights down low. Okay, so right there. Love it. But Jamie Lee Curtis, she knocked it out of the park, and especially in that seduction scene that she did. And I admire her for doing that scene. That takes a lot, for a lot of actresses to make themselves that vulnerable, where she's doing that seductive, sexy dance scene right there. And 100 to her. Okay, absolutely. And the gray man says, Last Action Hero is my favorite Arnold flick. Really? Wow, we need to talk. I would turn you to maybe something like T2 or the Terminator or Predator or something like that. But hey, to each their own. To each their own. Right there and that. But yeah, not my favorite right there. Now I do think that it had a pretty good soundtrack. That is for sure. So I much respect to the Last Action Hero soundtrack right there, but absolutely. Trevor says, I guess T2 doesn't exist right there. Yes, my sentiment exactly. But hey, you know what? I'm not going to dog on anybody too hard for having a favorite right there. So, but yeah, I mean, and I one of my favorite moments that Jamie Lee Curtis had in the movie is, I admire her character for kicking Tom Arnold right in his nuts. Okay. And I hope she has a very wide knee, and she got him in both of his cojones in that. So it's, so I admire her. Much love to Helen Tasker in this movie and I know it's fake. I get it. I know, but I'm part of me is kind of hoping like, maybe she kicked him a little too hard where Tom Arnold actually felt it, because that guy is a complete douchebag in real life. But Jamie Lee Curtis and Schwarzenegger, they had great chemistry in this, particularly in the scenes after she finds out he's a spy. And, there's that scene where Schwarzenegger's just, he's got a couple of Mac 10s and he's mowing down dudes. And she quips, I married Rambo. So she's always had great comedy chops. She was great in Trading Places, particularly in the scene where she's like, I'm Inga from Sweden, that whole Trading Places scene there. So, and yeah, there you go. And how do you plan on doing all that? My handcuffs? I pick them. Love it. Great moment in that. So, and I'm sure he was impressing his wife. He's like, holy shit, my husband knows how to pick handcuffs, and he's he's kind of drugged, and he's still taking out dudes with a single shot, and just mowing terrorists down and that kind of thing, and kicking ass and whatever, and making like Bruce Lee and just dispatching bad guys left and right. So gotta love it there. So all right, so and let's do this here. And best scene in Trading Places was getting dressed in front of the mirror. Yes, her best scene, yeah. I feel you right there, absolutely right there. No truer words have been spoken there, good sir. Yes, absolutely. So, all right, so let's do this here. We have a newer sponsor here helping us out here with the show, and you guys should definitely check them out here. And I'm not gonna tell the story. I'm gonna let them tell the story of why you should check out their Flip City magazine right there. So here we go.
I love Flip City. It has brought new types of badassery and integrity to the print medium.
Genuinely cutting, but also funny, and obviously just chaotic and very fun.
All right, yeah. So that should tantalize you to grab yourself some Flip City magazine right there. I mean, I know I've grabbed myself some Flip City magazine right there. So no, I didn't just say I grabbed myself. I grabbed some Flip City magazine right there. So all right, so get your minds out of the gutter right there. So, but check that out. Those are some sharp looking covers right there, right? So, and I've read these cover to cover. And these are fantastic right there. These are the non-woke versions of Mad Magazine that we all remember from childhood. It Cracked. It was another kind of a Mad Magazine style satire magazine right there, or National Lampoon, another one as well. But Flip City, they're not interested in lecturing you. Okay, they just want to make you bust a gut. Okay. And as you see down below, if you put in promo code movies, so right down below, if you click on the Flip City link in the description and decide what you want to buy there, well, if you make sure that you put in promo code movies down there, you're going to get 10% off your order of the best non-woke comic around. Okay. So they're not going to lecture you about eating too much meat or make sure that you do what you can to fight climate change. Okay, nothing like that in Flip City magazine. Just good old chuckles right there. So get yourself some Flip City now. All right, so all righty then, and let's check out the chat. See if we got any more chats out there. I want to make sure I'm not ignoring anybody. So hopefully the gray man is still with us after. Hopefully didn't take it the wrong way. Me, busting his butt a little bit here about Last Action Hero. So, but hey, more power to you. Did have some good action in it, that's for sure. But I think we're good there. So, but True Lies. I mean, there's so much stuff to say about this in this. I mean, as you imagine, Cameron, the director, like with a lot of his movies, he had to work with the Department of Defense. Or I should say a lot of his movies, like Michael Bay. You watch like a lot of Michael Bay movies. He's works with a lot of military helicopters and military aircraft, like airplanes, fighter jets, that kind of tanks and Hummers and all that stuff. Not those kind of Hummers. And so, Michael Bay has to work with the Department of Defense. And so James Cameron had to work with the Department of Defense for the Harrier jets that you saw in that cool ass scene towards the end, where they're just lighting up the terrace or blowing up the 7 Mile Bridge and just turning that moving truck with a nuclear warhead in it, turning it into coleslaw, just shredding it like that, like they ran that truck into a paper shredder. Those scenes in there, where I was just like, damn. And then they were launching those Stinger missiles. Those terrorists were launching those Stinger missiles, at the Harriers and trying to get them to
crash and burn, huh, Mav?
Yes, but hey, they didn't go down right there. But it's kind of fascinating. I mean, whenever a movie has to deal with the Department of Defense, typically that's a sign where that movie is going to have some pretty cool action set pieces in that. That is for sure. Another bonus, another big reason to check out True Lies is, of course, Tia Carrere. Okay, Tia Carrere. I'm sure we all remember her from Wayne's World and Wayne's World 2. And of course, if you don't appreciate Tia Carrere in this movie, you're either a woman or
I have relationships with women and sex with men.
And I got news for you. That means you're gay.
Exactly. So, because Tia Carrere, she's a complete smoke show in this as Juno Skinner. But in real life, she's not just a total smoke show. I mean, she's a great singer. And so, I mean, is there much hotter? Is there anything much hotter than that where you have a woman where she's just smoking hot, but she can sing as well? So that's just, oh man, absolutely. The mind-boggling combination. That's the dual powers right there. So was the bridge out? Yes. The bridge is out. The bridge is out. Yeah, another great comedy moment for Jamie Lee Curtis in this movie. But Tia Carrere, and of course, like I mentioned before, she was Cassandra in Wayne's World 2. And she still looks pretty good to me, even all these years later there. All right, so let's do this. Let's get to my favorite segment of every Movies America spoiler warning, okay? And that, of course, is my movie military moment, y'all. Yes, we're going to get into that right now. And, oh, thank God the gray man's still here. Thank God. All right, so there we go. We didn't lose a man here, so. So, yeah, it's movie military moment time. And just in case we have some newbies here that don't know what the movie military moment is, well, that is just my humble attempt at showing appreciation to our men and women that have won the Congressional Medal of Honor, okay, that have served our country, but have served it in such a fashion that they have been awarded a Congressional Medal of Honor, okay? And you may be wondering, well, what's the connection between a movie and the military? Well, as you would imagine, if you're going to be the recipient of a Congressional Medal of Honor, what you did to be awarded that has got to be some incredible, eye-popping, mind-boggling shit to behold, if you had it on a screen in a movie theater in front of you, it would boggle the mind. It would make your eyes just bulge out of your head, much less if you saw it in person, right? Okay. And it would be a monumental movie moment, okay? Or more to the point, a movie military moment. And that is the connection, okay? And so this movie military moment's proud honoree is one Staff Sergeant Clinton Lavore Ramesha, and I apologize if you know Staff Sergeant Ramesha, and you're like screaming at the screen right now for me butchering his name. I apologize. Okay, I'm an ugly American. I can't pronounce any name that is not Bob Smith correctly. Okay. All right, but any proud movie military moment honoree deserves their own music right there. And let's get the ball rolling on that, shall we? So here we go. This is the movie Military Moments. And this movie Military Moments proud honoree is one Staff Sergeant Clinton Lavore Ramisha. And let's just take a minute or two to learn more about what Staff Sergeant Ramisha did to become a recipient of the Congressional Medal of Honor. Now, this Staff Sergeant Ramisha, he served in the War on Terrorism in Afghanistan. So, let's read on. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty, while serving as a section leader with Bravo Troop, 3rd Squadron, 61st Cavalry Regiment, 4th Brigade Combat Team, 4th Infantry Division, during combat operations against an armed enemy at Combat Outpost Keating, Kamdesh District, Nuristan Province, Afghanistan on 3rd October 2009. On that morning, Staff Sergeant Ramisha and his comrades awakened to an attack by an estimated 300 enemy fighters, occupying the high ground on all 4 sides of the complex, employing concentrated fire from recoilless rifles, rocket-propelled grenades, RPGs, and anti-aircraft machine guns, mortars, and small arms fire. Staff Sergeant Ramisha moved uncovered under intense enemy fire to conduct a reconnaissance of the battlefield and seek reinforcement from the barracks before returning to action with the support of an assistant gunner. Staff Sergeant Ramisha took out an enemy machine gun team, and while engaging a second, the generator he was using for cover was struck by a rocket-propelled grenade, inflicting him with shrapnel wounds. Undeterred by his injuries, Staff Sergeant Ramisha continued to fight, and upon the arrival of another soldier to aid him and the assistant gunner, he again rushed through the exposed avenue to assemble additional soldiers. Staff Sergeant Ramisha then mobilized a 5-man team and returned to the fight equipped with a sniper rifle. With complete disregard for his own safety, Staff Sergeant Ramisha continually exposed himself to heavy enemy fire as he moved confidently about this battlefield, engaging and destroying multiple enemy targets, including 3 Taliban fighters who had breached the combat outpost perimeter. This guy has done a lot. While orchestrating a successful plan to secure and reinforce key points of the battlefield, Staff Sergeant Ramisha maintained radio communication with the Tactical Operations Center. As the enemy forces attacked with even greater ferocity, unleashing a barrage of rocket-propelled grenades, again RPGs, and recoilless rifle rounds, Staff Sergeant Ramisha identified the point of attack and directed air support to destroy over 30 enemy fighters. After receiving reports that seriously injured soldiers were at a distant battle position, Staff Sergeant Ramisha and his team provided covering fire to allow the injured soldiers to safely reach the aid station. Upon receipt of orders to proceed to the next objective, his team pushed forward 100 meters under overwhelming enemy fire to recover and prevent the enemy fighters from taking the bodies of the fallen comrades. Staff Sergeant Ramisha's heroic actions throughout the day-long battle were critical in suppressing an enemy that had far greater numbers. His extraordinary efforts gave Bravo Troop the opportunity to regroup, reorganize, and prepare for the counterattack that allowed the troop to account for its personnel and secure Combat Post Keating. Staff Sergeant Ramisha's discipline and extraordinary heroism above and beyond the call of duty reflect great credit upon himself. Bravo Troop, 3rd Squadron, 61st Cavalry Regiment, 4th Brigade Combat Team, 4th Infantry Division, and the United States Army. He did all that, and that was a whole lot. And for that, we salute you, Staff Sergeant Clinton Lavore Ramisha, for your service to our country. And that has been our movie Military Moments. All right. Yeah, he put in a day. He put in a day right there. So to put it mildly, right there, And yeah, just makes you ask and makes myself ask, what did I do today? Okay. I was all pissed off earlier today because I was like, oh man, I ran out of sweetener. Oh my God. Here's this guy. He's like dodging RPGs and shit and whatnot. I'm like, I don't have any Splenda. So yeah, it puts things in perspective. Okay. But as I always say, hey, if you're watching this either live right now or later on, and you happen to be a family member or a friend of Staff Sergeant Clinton Lavore Ramisha, again, apologize for butchering the name if I'm doing that. Make sure that they know about this. Okay, I think that they would get a kick out of their loved one, having someone pay tribute to them here in this regard. Okay, so I love the idea. I love the image of them seeing like, oh my God, look, that's my dad or that's my brother or whatever, and he's paying honor to, like, and them, being touched by that. That's I like the idea of that. So all right, so yeah, if you're in that position, if you're that person, do that. Okay, so all right, here, let's check the live chat here real quick, because I don't want to leave anybody out there. I don't want to be that guy whatsoever. And yeah, right there, yeah, more like military intense moments. Yeah, exactly. Well, you're right. You're right. Ooh, I felt a little old man cough coming on here, so I know it was very classy to be coughing right in the microphone. So hey, it's time for me to down some barley wine here to take care of that parchment. Oh yeah. Okay, so it's about that time here, as I do in every show, to remind you that, hey, you do have a way, if you are appreciating what I'm doing right here, doing Movies America, spoiler warning, providing a chance to in-depth talk about a movie, that kind of thing, live chat and whatnot. If you appreciate the interview with Christian Toto earlier, and you want to show a little appreciation, a buck or two or something like that, hey, there's a way to do that. If you're on YouTube, there's the super chat function there. That's the button with the dollar bill kind of down by where you type in your chat message there, if I can stammer that out. And then on Rumble, you can give me what's called like a Rumble rant. And how you do that is you hit the button that has the dollar sign down at the bottom where you type in your live chat message. And there you'll ask, hey, do you want to give a buck or two or whatever? And you can do that. And last but certainly not least, if you're checking me out on Pilled, you can give me what's called gold pills. And gold pills equate to dollar bills, okay, to moolah there. And so you can give me gold pills there in Pilled if you are so inclined. And again, no guilt tripping here, only if you feel like doing that. If you do, I appreciate it. If you don't, no big deal. No big deal. Okay, so I can't always afford to watch people's show and do that myself, so I totally understand. All right, enough of that. I belabored that point. All right there. So, and again, just because it popped in my head again, Christian Toto, you may have seen him earlier on the show. If you join in the party here a little late and you missed the Christian Toto interview earlier, make sure to watch the beginning of this episode here and check out Christian Toto and our discussion about woke Hollywood and the original movies not getting the box office that it sounds like Christian Toto agreed with me, not getting the box office numbers that we think that they should get to send Hollywood the message like, hey, stop making so many damn lame sequels and prequels and reboots, okay? Make some original shit. And we were just kind of, or I was griping, I should just put it on myself. I was griping and bitching that we don't have more people going out and seeing original content and that kind of thing. So if you want to see that whole conversation, yeah, make sure to be kind and rewind back in the episode and check out that interview and check out Christian Toto. Check out him on his Hollywood in Toto podcast and Hollywood in Toto, his website as well. All righty, so let's do this here. I teased this earlier, and it's time to deliver. And that is my top 5 Bill Paxton movies right there. Who doesn't love Bill Paxton, right? And as you know, Bill Paxton was in True Lies. This movie right here. Yes, True Lies right there. So yes, and that's part of the reason I'm doing this review is because I got my True Lies 4K right there because True Lies and Aliens in the Abyss just came out on 4K not too long ago. And so I did the Abyss review not too long ago. I'm doing True Lies right now. I'm betting Aliens will be getting a review here pretty soon. Just maybe a little hint right there. So absolutely. All right, so let's get into the top 5 Bill Paxton movies because again, like I said, Bill Paxton is in this movie as Simon. And so I'm going to go from number 5 down to number 1, and I encourage you in the live chat while I'm doing this, let me have it if you don't agree with my list, okay? Trevor, I can always count on Trevor, and God bless him for it. He is not above just letting me have it, ripping me a new one in the live chat. If he is not agreeing with my list, and I love every minute for it. I'm here for it. But yeah, he's on YouTube. If you're on Rumble or Pilled, and you're like listening to my list, and you're like, what the fuck? What is Van smoking? What that movie? Let me have it in the live chat. Okay. It's your chance to just pummel my ass. Or you can live chat with me and go, I love your list. You're the best, Van. All right. So we're going to start with number 5 down to number 1. And number 5 is Vertical Limit. Okay. And this is probably the movie where I'm probably going to have the most people going, what? What movie? What movie is that? Vertical Limit? Never heard of it. But Vertical Limit is a movie directed actually by the same guy who directed Casino Royale. Okay, the great James Bond movie. He directed GoldenEye, another great James Bond movie, and he directed at least one of the Zorro movies with Antonio Banderas. Okay, and he also directed what was that? The Foreigner, that great Jackie Chan, Pierce Brosnan movie called The Foreigner. Check that out. That's a movie that probably a lot of people haven't seen right there with Jackie Chan and Pierce Brosnan. So Martin Campbell is that director's name, and yeah, he basically knocked it out of the park with Vertical Limit as well. And Vertical Limit tells the story of there's a brother and sister who would go cliff climbing and mountain climbing with their dad, and some tragedy happens. And so fast forward from that tragedy and to where you get all these people climbing K2. Okay, obviously, as you know, people climb Mount Everest and K2 and all these, all these mountains and whatnot. And so one of the children is like a acclaimed mountain climber that takes people up to Mount Everest and all that stuff. And so she's there helping out the tourists. And one of the tourists is this billionaire played by Bill Paxton, as you see here in the movie. Because typically, if you're going to climb Everest, you gotta be pretty rich. That fucking climb is not cheap. Okay. And so then Trevor, yep, there we go. That is a great quote right there. 20 million sperm and you the fastest. Yeah, right there. So yeah, that's a great line right there. This movie has all kinds of great lines right there. So I mean, like a strap on the nitro, and you'll know exactly what that quote is referring to if you watch the movie right there. So, but yeah, Bill Paxton, he's like this billionaire, and he's wants to climb, K2. I can't remember if it's K2 or Everest. Trevor will correct me. Hey, Agent X6 here in the Pilled live chat right there. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Agent X6 is here. Sometimes you just got to say, what the fuck? There you go. Yes. Advice to live by right there. So great advice from Curtis Armstrong in Risky Business, giving that to the character of Joel in Risky Business right there. And of course, Curtis Armstrong, better known as Booger on Revenge of the Nerds. Okay. And Agent X6 says, hello, movies and the Gray Man. Yes, there you go. Hello all around. So Bill Paxton, he's a billionaire. He's basically climbing, I forget Mount Everest. I should have watched this movie before this episode. So we're just going to say Mount Everest for the purpose of the show. And so the daughter at the beginning of the movie that I was referring to with the family, she's helping him climb Mount Everest, and they're going up with a bunch of people. And they think, and so kind of towards the beginning of the movie, they're talking about how, Trevor is pretty sure it's K2. So they're talking about like this weather pattern, this weather front coming in. And they're like, should we go for it? Should we climb it? And I think it's like Bill Paxton and his team were like, fuck it, let's do it. Let's go. We don't care. We're pretty sure that big, bad winter storm front's going to turn to the south or turn away from us and whatnot. Well, of course, in true movie fashion, in order to up the stakes, as they're climbing up K2, that weather front comes in and a big ordeal, big, disaster happens and that kind of thing. And so they're trapped up there on K2, and it's life or death stakes. And so then you have another main character in the movie, and he's like, hey, one of my loved ones is up there on that team. We got to go rescue him. And they're so far up the mountain that most people, even the most experienced climbers, are like, that's a death wish. It's a suicide mission going up there. They're so far up there. We can't risk going up there. You should just consider them dead. We can't go for it. But yeah, a few brave people are like, we're doing it. We're gonna try to go up there and rescue him. And the rescue attempt is harrowing as fuck. Okay, it's very nail biting. And they have this helicopter sequence where they fly up as high as a helicopter can go, but eventually, like the air is too thin, and the helicopter can barely stay aloft. And so you get these climbers, these rescuers, are trying to like hop off the helicopter onto this little landing with a sheer cliff drop down below it, trying to jump off this helicopter while the rotors are fucking spinning, right? And they're trying not to get turned into coleslaw while trying to jump onto this little patch, this little landing, and not fall to their death at the same time. It's a very intense scene, and so it's another reason you should check out Vertical Limit. But Bill Paxton in this movie is a reason you should check him out, and it's one of those. He plays against type. Okay, it's not a Bill Paxton that you're used to see. But Trevor says right here, forgot the guy's name, but the older climber dude who was in Backdraft, what a badass. Yeah, it's Scott Glenn is plays that character right there. So yeah, he God, I can't remember. He's like was it I want to say Solomon Wick or something like that is his name or something like that. But he plays like this grizzled mountain climber there that might have an agenda. He might have something might have some plans for old Bill Paxton's character in this. But yeah, Scott Glenn's a veteran actor that we've seen. Yeah, he was in Training Day as well, and in Silverado and The Right Stuff and Urban Cowboy and all these great movies there. So, but check out Vertical Limit. Great movie in that. Chris O'Donnell's in that. Of course, he played Robin in Batman and Robin. He was in Scent of a Woman. Bill Paxton. Who else is in that movie that you might recognize? Not a whole lot. It had a whole lot of names. It's got one of the younger characters in that is in The Dark Knight Rises. He's like the character that Batman or that Bane puts his hand on his shoulders like, do you feel in charge? That entrepreneur, that CEO guy. That guy, he's a much younger in Vertical Limit. So Ben Mendelsohn is his name. Right, he's in this movie. So, check out Vertical Limit. All right, and hey, we got A66 with a fantastic Revenge of the Nerds sticker in here. So, love it, fantastic. So we're gonna move down from number 5 to number 4. And that is, of course, Bill Paxton as Chet in Weird Science. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I know it's a missile. I didn't think it was a whale's butt, lady. Okay, so yeah. Chet in Weird Science. Like, how about a greasy pork sandwich served in a dirty ashtray. I love it, man. Chet is, I think Weird Science, I think that was the first movie I ever saw with Bill Paxton in it. So, because that movie came out in 85. He was in Terminator, which I saw Terminator when it first came out, but he had a very small part in that movie. And then he was in Commando this same year as Weird Science, but he had a very small part. I didn't recognize him there. He was in The Lords of Discipline, a little bit before Weird Science and Commando and all that stuff. But he was in like a blink or don't miss it role in that right there. So yeah, Weird Science and him playing Chet. That was my first introduction to Bill Paxton. But I just remember, like, man, this guy is a genius at playing a complete asshole. Okay, and that's what Chet was in this movie right there. So I just love it when what was it? What's his face? His younger brother comes into the kitchen. He's like wearing what's her face's underwear, and Chet like throws his towel right there. Like, for God's sakes, would you cover yourself? Oh, I love it. So yeah, he pukes, you die. But yeah, Chet, of course, he plays the older brother that he's in charge of watching. It's Wyatt. That's right. Yeah, Wyatt. And who is it? Anyway, not important. But yeah, Anthony Michael Hall and the Wyatt there. Yeah, blink or you'll miss it role like Terminator. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, he's at home. He's supposed to be in charge while God damn it, what's Wyatt's what's the other character's name right there? I'm like wanting to kick myself there for not remembering their name. Gary, that's it. Gary and Wyatt. There we go. Because I had to remember like earlier in the movie where Gary's mother is like, after Kelly LeBrock says, and your son has to resort to tossing off in the bathroom to nudie magazines. Oh, Gary! So yeah, Gary and Wyatt. So Gary and Wyatt are left alone except for Chet at Wyatt's house right there, and so yeah, Chet is just there long enough to drive them crazy, to make their life a living fucking hell right there. And so but Bill Paxton just knocks out of the park as Chet. And then, of course, at the end, Chet, he gets punished by Lisa. That's it. Lisa, played, of course, by the hottest fuck Kelly LeBrock at that time right there. And she turns him into, I guess, what I think it's a piece of shit, basically. Or turns him into a turd at the end right there. But yeah, it's a fantastic role for Bill Paxton, and and he went on to play some other roles that kind of mimic Chet in this right there. But I just like at the end, he's got the double barrel shotgun, and he's just knocking heads right there with Wyatt and the girls and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, Bill Paxton is Chet. Very classic, very legendary role there. Okay, so, and I know I'm mentioning something about Chet there in Weird Science. And after I'm done doing this episode, I'm like, why didn't I mention it? What the hell? And we got Agent X6 here with a Bill Paxton and Aliens there. Yes, exactly. Playing Hudson in Aliens, and Agent X6 also Nerds from Revenge of the Nerds. Yes, there you go. So Don Gibson is the name of that actor who played Nerds. Yeah, what did he play? Ogre. Yeah, in Revenge of the Nerds. All right, so moving on to number 3. Yes, we got Bill Paxton in the very movie we're talking about tonight, True Lies. Yeah, Bill Paxton playing Simon as the super spy, trying to put the moves on Arnie's wife in this Jamie Lee Curtis's Helen Tasker episode right there. And Bill Paxton, he is just does a knock it out of the park job at being slimy and sleazy, but hilarious at the very same time here. And this is the total opposite of some of his later roles, like where he was in Twister and Apollo 13. I don't remember if Apollo 13 was after True Lies, but it was the year after True Lies right there, where he plays kind of more stand-up, upright kind of guys, as opposed to the total sleazeball that he is in True Lies, but an hilarious sleazeball. And he just does a great job at like the scene where they finally bust him and Jamie Lee Curtis, and they're dragging him out to the van, and Bill Paxton screaming like, "Leave me! Take her! Take her! Spare me!" That right there, and then they take him out to that dam area there, and they're trying to intimidate him, and he was like, "What a terrorist! Piss himself! I'm nothing. I'm naval lint, and I don't get much action. Then I've got a small dick. It's pathetic." Yeah, it's I know. Don't clip that, okay? So now somebody will know I said that. But yeah, Bill Paxton, fantastic in this movie, and he does a pretty good job. Like at the beginning of when we see him in here, of making you think like maybe he is the real deal, maybe he is a super spy. But then the movie doesn't take long to reveal that, oh yeah, this guy's just some sleazy dirtbag used car salesman that, like as he says, I gotta, he has to trick women, into sleeping with him and that kind of thing. And he doesn't score a lot. But this whole scene right here that we see here in the picture of Arnold, kind of doing some recon on the Simon character here is hilarious. Where Schwarzenegger's he's just trying to hold it in. He just wants to absolutely fucking kill Simon in this, but he's holding back. And because, Bill Paxton, obviously he doesn't know who Schwarzenegger's character is, but if he did, man, he'd definitely be singing a whole different tune. And just the fact that you have Bill Paxton's gift for playing these just unsavory, sleazy characters. He's got that down. I mean, he can do those roles in his sleep. Now, from what I hear, that is completely contradictory to who he was in real life. So that makes it even more amazing, because his fellow Hollywood community just raved about him there, about what kind of man he was and that kind of thing. Sounds like the kind of guy that would give you the shirt off his back and all that. So, all right. So moving on from True Lies down to number 2 here in our list. Number 2 is Aliens. Yes, Aliens right there. And we all know this scene, don't we? Where Lance Henriksen's Bishop is doing the old knife trick between the fingers. I love it. I love it right there. So, and because Hudson, I think he's the one like, "Bishop, do the knife trick, man. Do the trick with the knife, man." And, before long, Hudson's really regretting asking Bishop to do that, because, he is the unlucky recipient of being the guinea pig right there. And you got Drake there in the background, holding Hudson down right there. But, yeah, great scene. And it's one of the legendary scenes. And that's a scene that just it makes Aliens a movie that you will not forget, and it also just really solidifies Bill Paxton's Hudson character as like just this goofball, in the squad. Basically, he's just kind of like the guy that everyone just kind of thinks of as just the goofball, just the guy that is just the butt of all jokes, and he's not the toughest dude on the squad. And as we find out later on, he is he's kind of bitch made, really. Okay, he's kind of a coward, but then he redeems himself. He totally redeems himself. At the end there. But Agent X6 has a good point. His face during that knife trick is insane. And that's another thing about the great writing in Aliens is that whole knife trick. It moves the story forward in this movie, because you get Bishop, and he cut himself. He didn't cut Hudson, but he cut himself. And I think it was like Rico Ross's character says to Bishop, like, "Hey, Bishop, I thought you never missed," because he sees Bishop leaking some of his android blood or something, or synthetic blood. And of course, Ripley notices that, and that's her cue. Like, hey, you know what? No one told me that there'd be a synthetic on board, and that kind of moves the story forward, and lets you know that Ripley is not too happy, not too hot on synthetics being on the mission, because of course of what she dealt with the synthetic in the first Alien, right there, where Ian Holmes synthetic tried to kill her there. So it's just great writing, where it's not just a funny scene where they're torturing Hudson, torturing Bill Paxton. It's a scene that moves the story forward, and you just don't see that kind of good writing often enough in movies nowadays there. But yeah, Hudson, he had some memorable lines in this, game over, man, game over. Okay. Or was it stop your grinning and drop your linen? And it's like, we're pretty fucked here, man. We're game over. And was it he's coming in? Oh, I feel safer already. And then a classic scene where he says to Vasquez, like, "Hey, Vasquez, has anyone ever mistaken you for a man, or have you ever been mistaken for a man?" "No." "Have you?" Great comeback towards Hudson. Whereas we're gonna see some real action, or is this gonna be another bug hunt, sir? Great lines from Bill Paxton as Hudson, and he just solidified himself. 1985, 86, great years for Bill Paxton. Okay, he should have. I was gonna say he should owe himself, his agent, a nice Christmas gift. A nice little meat and cheese tray at Christmas to his agent for getting him these roles. But it wasn't his agent that had to act in these roles and give these great performances. That was Bill Paxton. And Bill Paxton was he was one of the highlights of Aliens right here. So, but just fantastic. And he just provided the comedy relief in this that we needed, because Aliens has a lot of intense moments where you definitely need the break and whatnot. So, and again, I mean, is he hilarious in this movie?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, he is. Absolutely. So, if you know how to count, which I'm assuming everybody knows, that since that was number 2, we're going to number 1. Number 1 right there. And what could number 1 be? What could it be? Well, I will tell you in a second, but not until I tell you next week's movie is going to be The Fall Guy. That's what we call misdirection, everybody. So I'm going to be reviewing The Fall Guy, the new Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt movie. Emily Blunt? She's not a cake. Emily Blunt there. So yeah, that's coming out this weekend. Okay. So, and of course, that is the movie adaptation of the classic The Fall Guy TV show. So I'll be doing my spoiler-free review of The Fall Guy coming out this Sunday afternoon, and that is going to be at 4 Eastern, 3 Central, 2 Mountain, and 1 Pacific there. Check out my Fall Guy spoiler-free review this on Sunday afternoon. And then, of course, a week from tonight will be the Fall Guy spoiler-heavy Movies America spoiler warning episode. So yeah, make sure to go check out The Fall Guy at theaters. And I don't think it's rated R. So I think it's a good movie that you could probably take the kids out. And from what I heard, it's supposed to be pretty good. Early reviews that I heard from back when it was playing, I think at South by Southwest, they were raving about it there. But I haven't heard much about it after that, because I purposely try not to watch other people's reviews before I go see the movie myself to, keep things pure and fresh and that kind of thing. So, but all right, I've teased you enough. I've tortured you enough to get you down to number 1, the number 1 Bill Paxton movie here. And this is probably when I'm going to get some turbulence, get some response back in the live chat. So number 1 is Near Dark. Yes, Near Dark. Yes, Near Dark. Bill Paxton's movie that he did with a couple of his castmates from Aliens. Okay, he was in this movie with Lance Henriksen there, and what's her name? Janine. I was going to say Jean Triplehorn, but the actress that played Vasquez in Aliens right there. So yeah, she's got Vasquez and Bishop, or he's got Vasquez and Bishop in the movie Near Dark. And Near Dark, of course, is a movie that tells a tale of a cowboy down, I believe, in Texas, and he's just out at the bar and just hanging out, and he meets this girl that pretty much he wants to get laid. Okay. And so he meets this girl and he just thinks like, hey, she's just going to give it up. Well, she ends up biting him. And this girl that bites him turns out, hey, she's a vampire. She's a vampire. She's a bloodsucker. Okay. And so she kind of leaves him to go off with his life and whatnot. And he just goes back home. And pretty soon he realizes, holy shit, like something's wrong with me. I can't go out in the sunlight. The sun hurts me. I'm craving blood now all of a sudden. And he realizes he's in deep shit. So he goes and he seeks that girl again. And he finds the girl, but also he finds the group of vampires that she's traveling around with. Okay. And so the girl pretty much has to convince the other vampires in her group, including Bill Paxton that you see here in the picture. His name is Severin in the movie, to accept this cowboy and not just outright kill him, just to let him turn into a vampire and accept him as part of their group of vampires. And so this group of vampires, they're just like this group of vampires that just kind of wanders around the United States, just trying not to be killed and victimizing, murdering people, in various locations around the country and that kind of thing. And of course, they only go out at night. And you do find some fascinating facts about these vampires, like Lance Henriksen's vampire character, is so old, because this takes place in modern day. This movie takes place in modern day. He's so old. He fought in the Civil War. And you find out, about this other character. He was, turned when he was a kid and that kind of thing. And so this group of vampires, made up of Lance Henriksen and Bill Paxton and others, are just an entertaining a group of vampires there. But fucking, they're just brutal. They're brutal. They just murder at will. Okay. And they murder brutally and bloody. Okay. And as you can tell here from this very picture, yeah, it's Bill Paxton's Severin character is not afraid to get his hands dirty, or more to the point, bloody here. And he's got a great scene in a bar. That's the scene right here that we're looking at, where they are just toying with some unlucky bar patrons that are in the wrong place at the wrong time in this bar at night, when they're just in there shooting pool and getting their booze on. And all of a sudden, this group of people just walks in that happens to be a bunch of vampires that are looking for blood. And that whole scene where they're just taking the people out is just tense as fuck. But Bill Paxton's character in this scene kind of lends some very, very dark, murderous, brutal humor to the scene. And he is just, he's evil as fuck in this movie. And so that's he's one of those guys where he just really just drives home the point. This is not a vampire you would want to run into. Not that you'd want to run into any vampire character, but if this guy ever walks into your bar, you see him right there, it's already too late. You're going to be,
No, God, please, no.
Yep. So, but he's got great chemistry with Lance Henriksen in this. And it's another movie where Bill Paxton Severin has some great lines. And there's like one scene, this isn't a spoiler if you haven't seen Near Dark, But they have like this basically the cowboy. He's like, he's like in his early 20s, I'd say. Well, he's got a little sister and a dad, and his dad and his little sister are like, driving around trying to find the cowboy, their son, their brother, and the group of vampire along with this cowboy. What's the cowboy's name? I gotta stop calling him that. I can't want to call him like a Kyle or Rico or something like that. But they happen to go to a motel. Well, it just happens to be the same motel that this cowboy's his sister is at. And his sister looks like she's like 8 or 9 years old or something like that. And so she's out there at the motel. She's like getting some pop out of a pop machine. And the youngest vampire in the group, this vampire looks like he's probably like 12 years old or something. He just happens upon her. And of course, she looks good to him. And so this little vampire boy brings her to his motel room, and they walk in, and it must be like 3:00 in the morning or something like that. So they walk into the room, the little girl and the youngest vampire boy, and the little girl makes a comment like, "You guys sure are up late." And Bill Paxton's character is like, "We keep odd hours," and he just says it in a way that just cracked me up because they're sitting there at a table playing cards. she just walks in and just drops that line. And he's like, we keep odd hours, So I just thought it was kind of hilarious. But you got to see the scene to really appreciate that. But Near Dark is a fantastic movie, and it's directed by Catherine Bigelow. She directed some other movies that you probably know better than Near Dark, like Zero Dark 30. She directed Point Break, the good one with Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze. She directed The Hurt Locker, and a lot of great movies that she's done. But Catherine Bigelow, great director in this. And this is, I think this is the period of time. This is back in the 80s because Near Dark came out in 87. I think she was like dating James Cameron at the time or something like that, or she was like, at least friends with him. So I think that's how she got the hookup with Bill Paxton and Lance Henriksen right there. So, but check out Near Dark there, and fantastic movie. It's kind of hard to find because it's not the most ubiquitous movie. Okay, so it's not as easy as finding a movie like Top Gun Maverick or True Lies or something like that. So it didn't make a whole lot of money at the box office. Okay, it's kind of a lesser known movie, but it's definitely worth your money to check it out here if you have to rent it on streaming or something like that. So, or it's so good it's worth actually buying. But it's also got some great bloody practical effects. Okay, like some great burn effects. Because this movie really drives home the point that the sun will burn the fuck out of some vampires. Okay, and this is one of those movies where it drives home that particular aspect of vampire lore to really cool effect in this movie right there. So, right here, and Trevor's like, boo! Like that old lady on Princess Bride. Boo! Foul stench! Boo! Rubbish! Boo! May as well have picked Slipstream. Yeah. There we go. Hey, I told him that to let me have it right there. And Frailty. Yeah, Frailty was one of the movies that almost made the list, but not quite. I mean, if you really look at his IMDb, my God, it's really, really fucking hard to come up with the top 5 right here. But movies like Tombstone, didn't quite make the list, but he didn't really have that big a part in that. He was like, Virgil, Kurt Russell's brother, Virgil Earp, in that. Twister almost made it. Titanic almost made it. One of my favorite movies, U-571. He was in that. He played a sub captain. Simple Plan, directed by Sam Raimi. That almost made it right there. But almost had a whole bunch of runner-ups right there, but didn't quite make the list. Okay. So yeah, like, take your cues from Trevor. You know what? He took me up on my offer to rip me a new one right there. And I appreciate him doing that right there because I love different opinions there. But yeah, if you're watching this later on, if you're not watching this live, if you're watching the recording of it, get in the comments down below and let me know what you think of my list. Okay, maybe you hate it with the heat of the heat of 1,000 suns. There we go. Let me stammer that out there. Or maybe you love it. Okay, maybe you're writing a love poem to my list right there because you love it so. Okay, but if you don't like it, let me know. Like Trevor did. I mean, yeah, he doesn't like everything on my list, but at least he gave me some alternatives that he would have put on the list right there, like Frailty and Twister there. So, but yeah, let me know in the comments what you would have put on the list instead. Or hey, if you like the list, let me know what your favorite Bill Paxton movie is that I had on the list right there. Or forget the list or forget my top 5. Let me know, hey, what do you like best about what I do on this show? Or let me know if there's anything you feel I could do to improve, not to imply that I'm not Mr. Perfection, okay, here on the show and I'm doing everything perfectly, okay? So I'm sure Christian Toto earlier in the show, I'm sure he would not think that I am doing everything perfectly on the show, okay? So, but hey, who does, right? What content creator does their show perfectly? Nobody does. All right, so that has been my top 5 Bill Paxton movies. Because I was looking for any excuse to do a top 5 for Bill Paxton because, unfortunately, we lost Bill Paxton in 2017 there, and he's been gone too long, and he deserved to have some tributes made to him right there. Okay, let me get a little tug off this barley wine right here. Oh, yeah. Good stuff. So, all righty there. So let's do this. I'm going to get into over there. Okay, so some locations that I want you to check out here. Okay, some web addresses, some sites that you should go to, starting with moviesmerica.com. Okay, now the only reason you would want to go here is if you want to check out the audio-only versions of my spoiler-free reviews that come out on Sunday, okay? But if you really want to check them out, like as close to when they're live, or just watch them when they're live, I go live with those on Sunday afternoon. That's the best way to check them out, is check them out live, so you can live chat with this fool right here. But if you can't check it out live, and you don't want to watch the recording, check out the audio-only versions at moviesmerica.com. Also, there's a link in there to our merch store. But also, you can check out my audio-only versions of my spoiler-free reviews in podcast form on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all those places there. Okay. And then also on X, or I'm on X, formerly Twitter, and on Instagram and Gab, all under @MoviesMerica, okay? And I'm also on Rumble, okay? So follow me on all these locations right here. Follow me on Rumble. Check me out on Rumble under Movies Merica, of course. Now, I think there's more than 2 Movies Merica accounts on Rumble. It's the one with all the episodes, okay? The other one doesn't have anything on it. So follow the one with all the episodes on it, okay? And hey, if you instant message me and let me know, hey, you followed me, I will follow you back, okay? So definitely cool there. I'm also on Facebook I've got a Movies Merica group, a Movies Merica page over there, or you can follow them under Van Ebert on Facebook there as well. All right, and then if you check me out on X, reply to any of my posts that I put out there, or like any of my posts. DM me there. If you want to let me know about anything or anything like that. So let me know some guests that you want me to try to get on the show, that kind of thing. All right, and then next is tdpn.locals.com, and that's our website here for the Till Death Podcast Network, where we have all our great content about movies and entertainment and booze and maybe some boobs as well, and politics and hot button issues of the day. So check that out right there. And it's like Highlander. There can only be one Movies America. Yes, exactly. Yes, I took that fool out. That was at Kurgan right there. I took Kurgan out because there can only be one Movies America. I was waiting for a lightning bolt to hit me, but no lightning bolt hit me right there. And those Highlander movies are full of shit. All right, and then check out our merch store, our Till Death Podcast Network merch store at the link down in the description, all right? And get yourself some Movies America merch. Now, when you click on that link and go to the merch store, you might not see the Movies America merch right off the bat. You'll probably have to scroll down a little bit to get to it. But yeah, you can get yourself a Movies America t-shirt, Movies America phone case, Movies America yoga pants, probably not a Movies America carburetor, but we don't have those quite yet. But maybe we'll get a whole line of Movies America auto parts, so you get yourself a Movies America air filter later on or something. Who knows? Okay, so, but yeah, check out our merch store there. And then next, check out at Till Death Network, solo.to/Till Death Pod Network. And that's where you can go for all the links that'll get you to everything Till Death Podcast Network related, okay, or related. So check that out right there, because who wants to hunt and peck all over Al Gore's worldwide interweb for links? Just go to that location right down below to get all links you need. All right, moving on to solo.to/Till Death Studios. And that's where you would want to go if you are, like me, where you want to create a show like my Movies America show. You're in the content creation game and you want to spruce it up with some flair, okay? Like on Office Space, you want to have all kinds of flair, like tchotchkes or flingers, right? And if you want that flair, we'll go to solo.to/Till Death Studios, and my man Ian is going to hook you up with his flair skills that pay the bills, okay? He's going to create cool shit like this background you see right there. There we go. That's hard to do. Or the overlay that you see up at the top that says Movies America, or those cool intros that you saw at the beginning. Ian is going to hook up your content, your show with that. So the way to get the ball rolling on that is go to solo.to/Till Death Studios. All right, get it done. All right, and we got Agent X6 over here. Bill Paxton bobbleheads. Not quite yet, man, but that's a great idea. I wonder if somebody has that out there on the worldwide interweb right there. Maybe like a Bill Paxton, like Hudson from Aliens bobblehead, or Chet from Weird Science. That would be a hilarious one there. So, but you pose a great question there, Agent X6. We should all get on that. We need to research that and share our findings next week on this show. Pardon me. Damn beer. All right. So next link that you should go to is solo.to/I'm Sean Cav. And that's where you can check out all the links that have to do with Sean here on the Till Death Podcast Network. He's got his great music-related content. He's got his show Sipping with Sean. It comes out every other Friday afternoon. I know he does like X Spaces occasionally. There, he's got a group. I think it's called, what do they call it? Is it a group or something like that you can do on X? You can join his group. He's all the links to anything that Sean would like you to participate in. I'm sure is all at solo.to/I'm Sean Cav. And then we have solo.to/The Whiskey Capitalist. And that's your one-stop shop for links that have to do with the Whiskey Capitalist podcast that you should definitely check out every Monday and Wednesday night, okay, on Rumble and Pilled, okay, and on X, I believe. And then they do a show. They also do a show every other Tuesday night where they go over a documentary, I believe. So check that out. And an easy way to to join those shows is to go to solo.to/whiskeycapitalist and click on the links that I'm sure they put out there for the show. So check it out. All right, and last but certainly not least is solo.to/Till Death Podcast. And that's where you can find all the links that have to do with the flagship show of this network, the Till Death Podcast Network. The flagship show called Till Death Podcast. And that's the show with Ian and his lovely bride, Jen, where they bring you the latest in hot button topics and political stories and funnies and all that, all marinated in their marital mirth. Okay, so they bring the husband and wife perspective to all those stories and funnies and all that stuff. And that show is on every other Saturday afternoon. So check that out. That's the good stuff right there, people. Okay. And let me do this. I want to shout out the No Prisoners podcast on Pilled and on Rumble. Okay, if you're looking for a show to check out their show. Just got to search for No Prisoners podcast with 451 Actual and Kevin and my feisty ace. There we go. You can check out Woke Societies is another great show to check out. I believe on Pilled. Unfolding Joker. Check him out on Gab. Okay, and we got We Are the Show. He's on Rumble there as well. Dark Side Radio. Check that show out on Rumble as well. Okay. And and of course, check out this show. Again, I'm on, obviously, on Rumble and X and Pilled and YouTube. Okay. Well, I'm not on X quite yet. I'm not live on X, but the recording is on X. But yeah, if you want to check me out live, I'm on Rumble and Pilled and YouTube. Okay, so alrighty then. And so what I'm going to do right now here is I'm going to reward everybody that is checking me out or that are checking me out on Pilled, okay? And particularly the ones that are in the live chat on Pilled, I'm going to release a bunch of money to you, okay? Get ready to grab some cash. No, not pussy. You're not Trump, okay? So, and that was hilarious when he did say that. But no, we're going to grab some cash, okay? So get grabby, not Harvey Weinstein grabby, not Joe Biden grabby with a 7-year-old girl, not that kind of grabby with cash, okay? And so I'm going to be releasing some gold pills on everybody in the Pilled live chat, everybody. So, and the way I'm going to be doing that is I'm going to be releasing the scratch-in, and that's going to release a bunch of gold pills on everybody. So get ready, everybody. It's going to be released in 3, 2, 1. And that bad boy has officially been released. So get in there, get grabby, okay? So no one's going to grab them for you. You got to do that yourself. Do it. Alrighty there. So, yeah, I just want to thank everybody for checking out the show right here. And, Asian X6, great point. Fuck Joe Biden. Did you guys all see that video here recently? I think it came out today or yesterday, where he had both the pro-Hamas and the pro-Israel writer. Well, I guess pro-Hamas and pro-Israel people. They're both chanting "fuck Joe Biden," and I can't remember which one of the communist indoctrination camps that they were chanting that at. I don't know if it's UCLA or Columbia or wherever, but yeah, both sides were chanting "fuck Joe Biden." Fuck Joe Biden. And it was just finally a moment of unity. Okay. Biden truly is the unity president. Okay. Remember how he said that in his inauguration speech where he said, I'm going to be the unity president. And then like 5 minutes after his inauguration speech, he said, yeah, you got to look out for those dirty MAGA Republicans. All right. I guess the unity is over with. Okay. But now he's living up to his word. Finally, he's unifying the pro-terrorist supporters with the pro-Israel supporters in them chanting, fuck Joe Biden. Love it. So, but yeah, again, check out Christian Toto's Hollywood in Toto podcast on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast. Okay. I believe it's on Spotify and iHeartRadio. I just want to thank Christian Toto, again, for joining the show earlier. He's one of the acclaimed film critics. I mean, he's interviewed Kevin Costner. He's interviewed George Clooney. You see him on Friday Night Tights. He's been on with Ben Shapiro. He's been on the Adam Carolla Show. He's been on Fox News, I believe. He's done segments for PragerU. He's part of the Daily Wire and Blaze, I believe, is what he said earlier there. So he's connected, man. He's a made man. He's connected. Okay, so he can't be whacked. Okay, he can't be whacked. He's a made man. Okay, there. So check out. And then he has his Hollywood in Toto website. And then also check out his Get His Virtue Bombs book. He's got a book called Virtue Bombs that is an all-around breakdown of just the woke depravity of not just movies, but of TV shows and the comedy scene and that kind of thing. Virtue Bombs, if you just want this all-around breakdown of all of that. And it's a quick read, a very quick read. Check that out. The Forewords by Andrew Klavan of the Daily Wire. So check all that out right there. Okay, so all right, everybody, with that, get out there, people. Those movies aren't going to watch themselves. See ya.
Hey, everybody! Hey! I got the police after me. They're coming after me, okay? But I got just enough time to ask you. Just like this video, if you would, and then subscribe to this channel, okay? I'm gonna be in handcuffs pretty soon. I gotta tell you. Hey, so before they haul me off, make sure you watch these videos over here, okay? And thanks for watching this video and the Till Death Podcast Network, okay? I gotta go.